apologize if you hear background.
The agenda topics
We're
on the last call, will they be addressed on this call? Or is this just a demo?
Well, I do have, so Ricardo has put together, he's been quite organized, and, you know, we've got a list of pretty much everything that he has documented, and we've done a bit of a dry run here earlier so that I can touch on all of these in the presentation. So for instance, you know, a good 75% of these are in my, are covered by default.
Excellent.
And what we'll do is if there's any specific questions that require additional clarification, then please just, you know, raise that question and we'll address it directly. I do have access to a live system. So I do have access to AF, you know, so when we go through, I'd like to cover off the slide so I can give you an overview of the architecture, an overview of the components and the functionality, and then walk you through you know, a little bit of a live demo in terms of, you know, how it works and how you interact with the system and how the system interacts with OSI Soft Pi. So I want to make sure that you leave this meeting with a full understanding from end to end.
Perfect. I think James is on there now, so I think you could probably... James, are you there?
Yeah, sorry I'm late. Just running meeting to meeting, and then so thank you for waiting for me. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problems at all. So yeah, if we were to get started, I can, I guess, give you a quick introduction just to myself. I think you know Ricardo, who has been involved on this account from a technical sales. A few weeks back, I received an email, you know, with basically an inquiry back into an RtDuet proposal that was issued a few years back by Pablo Azaron, who's no longer with RTTech. So Ricardo has picked it up, and he's a good fit because he does have quite a bit of coverage, and he has, you know, a good technical background. So he's asked me to jump in on this one, being myself, I'm the original founder of the company, and actually, you know, years ago I wrote the first few versions of the software myself, so he was hoping I could jump in, and the timing worked out really well. So my background, I am actually an electrical engineer with a computer science degree, so I started my career in automation, doing PLC programming and HMI design and things like that with SCADA. Got into the OSI Soft Pi historian work back in the early 90s and have been, you know, building businesses around that. So if I were to give you some background, RTTech itself was a spin-off of one of my original companies called ADM, which is Automation Data Management. We had a software arm, and we started building apps based on Pi to assist in, you know, automation projects that we were doing. Those apps, one of them being RtDuet, actually ended up becoming its own sort of revenue center within ADM. And we decided that the two different mindsets for running an automation company and a software company were different. So I took the software, we spun out back in 2011. We actually hired Pablo just prior to that. So Pablo was an employee of ADM and then became an employee of RTTech back originally. So I apologize that, you know, there's a little discontinuity there in terms of who you spoke with, but myself and Ricardo will pick up. Our company currently is based in New Brunswick, Canada, but we do have offices in the US, the UK, and Australia. So we are truly a global company, and we do develop more than just, you know, a downtime OEE and reliability metrics app. We have also a utilities consumption app, which we won't cover today, but I like to throw it out there. Our RtEMIS app is an energy management information system, which is built on the exact same infrastructure. It is a sister product to the RtDuet, which is designed for identifying opportunities for saving on energy consumption. And, you know, we can save that one for a different day, but today I'd like to focus on, you know, the RtDuet app, which is an app that is actually more KPI driven. Originally it was for downtime tracking, and then you could do some, you know, root cause analysis based on classification. the evolution of that app really now driven more by maintenance and reliability KPIs like RtDuet, like OEE, availability, utilization from the reliability side. And then from a maintenance side, we calculate things like mean time to failure, mean time to repair, and those types of apps that you would normally report on from a maintenance perspective. So the apps themselves will provide the information in real time. So we are bolted directly onto OSI Soft Pi. We're baked into that system entirely. There are no external connections required for the system to run. If you have external reporting requirements and external like dashboarding necessities that fall outside of CoreSite or anything like that, then we provide you connectivity. However, we are baked entirely into the Pi system. Now, given that
how does
sorry?
Question, how does this compare to, for example, ZPI?
CPI? I'm not not familiar with that product. I can respond maybe at a later date, but I can do a comparison. But yeah, we are, a bolt-on for OSI. We've been working with them since about 2003 with this application. So I do have a roadmap that I'll show you in terms of how, we've progressed and evolved with OSI Soft. But yeah, we can get into questions about that later. So you did say...
Hey, Harko, maybe I can comment on that. Basically, this, along with RT Tech and the OEE type of dashboard, along with the OSI Pi, that's very equivalent to ZPI we have in for packaging side.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just additional to that as well, from what I've seen and my awareness of products, this could give you everything that API could give you and more, a lot more, yeah.
Well, hopefully I can identify what, we do deliver out of the box, because one of the things that is really key here is the fact that we're bolted onto the OSI product and we're part of the AF infrastructure. If there's something that doesn't get delivered out of the box, we are built on templates within AF. And with slight modifications to the templates, you can deliver even customized KPIs using the base information that we capture. One of the questions in your list was, how do we, distinguish ourselves from, the OSI Soft AF analytics? One of the things I can cover off here is that, we have our own engine for event frame generation. We, we were ahead of OSI when it came to using the event frames. We actually jumped on board in AF 2.3 when event frames were in beta and wrote an engine for capturing that. But I'll explain some of that as we get through this. So in addition to being built on top of OSI Soft, one of the reasons for the background noise here today, for instance, is we are at an OSI Soft regional seminar here today in Halifax. We've been partners with OSI Soft for 14 years, and throughout that partnership, we've evolved with them. We've moved as their technology, changed, and we have continued to keep up, but also provide a certain amount of backwards compatibility so that as customers, we have some customers that are slower moving in adopting new technology. We try to make sure that we cover off all of the basis so that we can deliver, solutions for whatever infrastructure you have on OSI Soft Pi. Just to give you an example, we support back to as far as AF 2.4, and we're fully tested and functional on AF 2.8. So those are the types of things that we guarantee when we talk about OSI Soft technology. Now, some of the key terminologies that, we see in the industry now, we talk about operational intelligence, stable ops, things like that. What we're doing is we're really delivering real-time information that allows you to make more intelligent decisions around, what's going on in your plant. So I heard you mention packaging earlier. Packaging is a great example of where we seem to see more OEE type applications than, a utilization KPI. Because within packaging, we get the performance and we typically get quality based on reject numbers. Not every situation provides us with a performance measure and a quality measure. So we rely on things more like availability and utilization. So as we go through this, what I'd like to highlight is, the apps that we're going to talk about today, is specifically the RtDuet one. We're really about, optimizing asset utilization, capturing and identifying bottlenecks where, you would typically see a slowdown or some type of a reduction in your performance. And we try to make the apps easy enough so that, whether or not it's an iPad or an industrialized tablet, which we really like, we make the interface extremely simple and intuitive so that, you get better operator adoption of it. And again, with the EMIS, we help you, identify where your opportunities are for energy savings. RT Tech, even though we've been around for a short time, we have quite an extensive reach when it comes to geography. As I mentioned earlier, we have offices in Australia, we have one in UK, we currently in North America, in Canada, and the US. But we do exist in 22 different countries at the moment, and that number grows. It has been growing by the week recently as we expand throughout companies like the Cargill organization. But we do have 24/7 support. I don't know if that's an important key for yourself, but we do provide full round-the-clock support. And we do provide field service, but we tend to partner with local OSIsoft partner and integration companies so that you also have feet on the ground, usually in your region.
Quick question, do you facilitate development of the software for specific companies?
We do. We take into consideration, like a lot of feature requests come in, and typically what we see is if we see the same request from multiple companies, we immediately put it into our pipeline for development. If there is a request for a specific feature, we take it into consideration because we do, what value does it bring to the software? Because we don't claim to know everything. And, the software is where it is today based on that iterative cycle of us taking feedback from customers. Now, if there's something that is very specific and you'd like to see it accelerated, we tend to share the cost if it's not something we see as key. And again, depending on how accelerated you want it, but typically we'll take every request in, put it into the pipeline development, and see if we can't work on an agreeable schedule for delivery. So it might be one release out or two releases out, but we try to accommodate everybody within a timely manner. Again, if it needs to be accelerated, we tend to share the cost because we'll bring in extra resources from one of our other product lines, and we'll, implement it as quickly as possible and get it through QA.
And when you say one or two releases out, how frequent are your releases roughly?
We're trying to get a cut per quarter. We try to keep up with OSIsoft, but we also try to stay ahead of them when it comes to builds. And again, we do major and minor releases for certain customers, like Cargill, for instance. We have over 500 plants within Cargill that are looking for RtDuet. Each plant has a little to offer, so we try to do one or two minor releases that can accommodate certain feature requests. So we do a major one per quarter, and then what we'll do is we'll do an interim one to just meet specific requirements if we have to.
Very good.
Just as an example, OSIsoft, for the first time in history that I've known, actually released their AF 2.8 early. It wasn't scheduled for release until the end of June. So what we did is we stepped up and we did an early release, pre-quarter, and did one sort of as an interim. So we'll do what we have to in order to meet customer demands and also to keep up with the technology. We have a fairly extensive, what we call a tier 1 client base. And Ricardo did mention to me that AbbVie are one of, sort of an extension or a relative of Abbott. And, life sciences are starting to sort of, creep up on us in terms of, our deployments within Lilly. We're talking to other major life science Mining was really kind of big when, depending on which industry is currently in the boom, we see a significant increase, but we have good coverage on food and beverage, power gen, mining, personal care products, tire manufacturing, you name it. We even carry NASA as a logo. We did an EMIS installation within NASA, but there is no real specific vertical that we're in. We're agnostic to the vertical, and what we accredit that to is the fact that because we're based on OSI Soft Pi, we don't worry about the connectivity. We don't worry about things like the platform. What we try to do is we sit down and work with each customer individually so that we can set early success criteria. You tell us, what your goals or what your objectives are so that we have something we can measure. And then we work with you in terms of developing a functional spec so that when we go to deploy, that deployment is something that's done within control and it's easily scaled out. So working with Abbott, for instance, on doing a really good upfront functional spec means that we can understand things like what your time usage models are, what your objectives are, and what your goals are from this software. So again, we're agnostic to the industry.
And do you facilitate any kind of validation around the structure? Do you have any documentation? What way does that work?
We do. We have some, we've been in some big power gen, for instance, and there's a lot of validation, a lot of documentation requirements there. We have standard tools, like a standard spec document that we start from. We have what we call, a Kickstarter. This is what you need to provide us with. So we have some information that we would normally send out to a new customer. And then we would run like a workshop on site. So that workshop is to familiarize and provide some early upfront training, but to also work with your team to document, what your expectations are so that we can, do either a gap analysis to say, look, this is what we can deliver now. You've identified some requirements that, you'd like to see in the software, and then we put a timeline together and for a project execution. It's the only way we've been able to survive in all of these industries. And as you can see, we get a lot of pull-through work by, entering mining, for instance, and developing an understanding of that, which is, translated into other mining operations. It seems to be, very easy to go. So again, we try to do our due diligence up front in that industry and so that we can scale out. Now, one of the other key things that we've done is we've actually formed some significant partnerships. And one that might be relevant in this case is we really work with manufacturing very closely. You mentioned packaging earlier. So we're part of, a manufacturing organization here, so we understand what, key drivers there are in that industry or in that vertical. We've partnered with a lot of hardware and equipment vendors because we do provide connectivity options for solutions that may be a little more dispersed. When we get into the agricultural industry, for instance, we struggle mostly with, the correct connectivity from the asset perspective, and we try to help and facilitate that, working with OSI Soft, for instance, and Dell, we've provided connectors that, allow the extension or the reach into that industry. So we've really extended our partnerships. When it comes to integration partners, ADM, which is the parent company of RtTech, they're still involved. They help us out. More regional than anything, within the Canadian market. When it comes to global, we partnered with ATS Automation. They have 54 offices around the world. Emerson Process Management. So, if we need to do an execution or a mass rollout, we would call on those resources. And then over in Norway and Australia, we have regional partners as well. There's, quite a list. I didn't put them all here, but I tried to touch on some key ones. And that's really to provide you with, again, we said feet on the ground, local installation support if you require it. But what we normally see is we typically will do 1 or 2, maybe 3, 4 installs. The installation and the configuration, we like to think, is so straightforward that you can use internal resources to handle the deployments, in multiple sites. But if required, we do call on our external resources. So that's kind of just the lead in. Now I'm going to jump into the actual product itself. So RtDuet, from the first time you've seen it back in, I think it was 2013, it's gone through quite a transformation in terms of visual components, functionality, the KPIs, things that it delivers, and even more specifically, our tighter integration within AF. So Duet, with the acronym is actually downtime, uptime, event tracking, is really about setting up the business logic or the triggers so that we can capture events as per your definitions. The capturing of those events, again, depending on how well implemented your Pi system is with the correct instrumentation, we can either auto-classify those events based on trigger, or we present your operations team or your management team a GUI or an interface that allow you to interact with those events and put some context to it. So downtime by itself is really an indicator that you can use for things like root cause analysis and, again, identifying bottlenecks. But if you put the proper context around it, we can do some really good KPIs like OEE, availability and things like that, where now you can sort of standardize across the different parts of your plant how well things are performing. So this is what we focus on. And again, your existing OSI soft partners or customers. So the connection part for us is making sure we get, again, enough instrumentation, enough signals from the assets, and we rely on OSI Soft Pi for that. So when it comes to integrating to PLCs, DCSs, or even third-party historians, we've got that covered. We pull that in through OSI. It is a real time. So again, we talk about capturing the data in real time so you can have that operational intelligence that allows you to do decision making. We are what's called connected services partner with OSI Soft. So if this were a brand new installation and you wanted to have a cloud-based solution, we are also qualified to push the information into the cloud, and our solution runs fully integrated within Microsoft Azure. And then we do also offer flexibility plans for both site licensing, asset licensing. So we'll do, the traditional model where you pay an upfront fee with maintenance annually, or we can offer you a subscription if that is better suited. And then again, once we work within a company, we also have what we call an EA agreement where we sort of top out and then we focus more on, the functionality and the deployment with, a maintenance agreement. So all of that is something that, that would be a good conversation to have if we get to that point.
I'm sorry, just to clarify a point there that I was talking to Pablo about before. He mentioned that if we purchase the license with yourselves and on the software, that if at the end of a year or 2 years, whatever, we decided we didn't want to do the renewal for the upgrades and whatever else, that we can still continue to use the software, that the license won't switch it off or anything.
That is
still correct. The same?
That is correct.
Okay.
So if you go with the non-subscription model and you outright buy the software up front, the license is not dependent on renewals. The renewal or the annual maintenance is your support, and it covers support and it covers free upgrades. Well, it's not free, but it covers the upgrade as part of the renewal. If you lapse on your renewal and you come back to us 5 years later to get the latest version, then of course we look at it and say, there's a lot that's gone into it. And that's really how we fund, the development moving forward as well, as we rely on those renewals.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thanks.
The system, RtDuet is a real-time system, so it's obviously switched on and it's running, it's doing things in the background. So because of the Pi system, your Pi system doesn't run by shift or anything like that. It's always 24/7. So the operations team and people out on the, in the field running the equipment do not need to worry about the system. They can come back to their station and look and find an event that has happened that they witness in the field. And so they don't have to focus on start times or end times or durations. They just need to worry about putting in the proper context to what happened. So it's, real-time asset monitoring. We actually can set it up so that different areas and different people required can actually have permission to only their areas. We can set it up so that you have, administrative roles, people who can oversee an entire line or a plant, and then we can narrow it right down so that based on their Active Directory login, they may only have, access to the asset they're required to see. So we do have configurable user permissions, and it is done completely based on AD. And of course, it wouldn't be, a configurable environment if we didn't, adapt to, the Abbott time usage model. So if you have something you're currently doing on paper or how you track things, we can actually make the transition easier by going kind of paper to glass, where we take what you're doing and we work with, the implementation team, and we make it so that that system that you're currently using and tracking, we adapt it to what RtDuet delivers, and then we literally transfer what you're currently working with into Duet, so it makes that translation easier. Again, I kind of talked about this earlier, but we do have the ability to auto-classify certain events, even when it comes to short events. A lot of times you get events that are captured which are significant in time, but you get a lot of short stops and delays that people tend to ignore. We have the ability in our system to auto-classify things as short events, so that maybe the operations team, they don't need to, classify or categorize every little 30-second stop or, minute and a half stop. We can focus on stops that are a little more significant. But when it comes to looking at the frequency of events versus the duration, those short events do mean something to us. So we have the ability to auto-classify things either based on duration or based on trigger. And then, of course, we wouldn't be a real-time system if we couldn't push you out alerts. So we can send out emails. Because we're so tightly integrated into OSIsoft, we can use notifications, but we have the ability to alert people on a given event or scenario of events where you want to be notified. Let's say if you have 6 stops or you total downtime on a particular asset meets a minimum requirement, you tell it. So a little more high-level logic, or we could go right down to just alerting on events in itself. So that's built in. Our visualization is web-based. What you're going to see, not in the next release, but in the 2 releases out, our visualization is also going to be pushed out to what we call native mobile apps. So we're going to be working with Android, iOS, things like that. One of the questions about iPads, we are in about 2 releases going to have an actual, iOS app. It does exist now, but we're not going to release it until we get it, fully pushed through the ropes. We do a couple of field pilots, field trials. But the idea here is that all of our dashboards, our information timeline are all available through web-based interfaces. And on the mobile apps, they do work currently with Safari and, mobile devices, and it scales properly. But eventually we want to do things like push notifications, so that, we're not relying on alerts through email. We can actually push notifications to a device that allows, operator actions and things to happen. But as it stands today, we are web-based. The information that comes out of the system, so we're talking about capturing, taking operator inputs, auto-classifying events. The outcome, or, the end result, is really about having information that allows you to adjust, adapt, or fix problems that, will allow you to improve your performance. So we have some built-in reports, root cause analysis, things where you can do drill down reporting. We have KPI dashboards. We have KPI reports that are built into the system. However, it's important to know that because we're based on Pi, when we calculate something or we capture an event, because that event is stored within the Pi system, we can take information, manipulate it, and put the result back into a Pi tag. So you can now use something like CoreSight, and you can build dashboards that are very much tailored to your needs, that allow you to visualize the data in a way that you want. And I think it's going to be early Q1 for us, or late fall. We're working with OSIsoft on their CoreSight extensibility project, where we are actually going to provide RtDuet add-ins that can be added so that there is some specific visuals that we can deliver. But right now we have out-of-the-box dashboards and reports, and we allow you to use the Pi tools to visualize it in your own customizable way if necessary. There is another product as part of our offering that I'll show you at the very end, where we also take all of the information and we push it into an ODBC compliant, data store. So if Abbott were to have a centralized reporting server where you want to run reports from SSRS or some third-party tool like Tableau or something like that, we can provide you with a mechanism that takes all of the information from all the sites and will push them to a central server for your own dashboards or your own reports. So this is where it started. And again, within RT Tech or ADM, depending on how far down the timeline you are, but as engineers and as reliability people tend to take Pi systems, they look at data like this and they know that somewhere in there's something that tells them what happened. So what we do is we wrap our logic around it, and our KPI engine will take that data and transfer it into an event-based scenario. So you have here, these are Pi tags. So every asset that you configure within RtDuet actually ends up with a status tag or a status point. That status point corresponds to a matching event frame. And then what you would do is you would double click, put your entry into the event frame, and then based on that entry, you end up now with, again, information that provides you with root cause analysis and KPIs. So we're all about putting some meaning and context to the data. Once all of that is captured, of course, then the KPI engine kicks in and it does its own analytics. And again, one of the questions in that list was what type of formulas or what type of equations are run in the background. There are 52 KPIs that we calculate, and I'll pull up on one of my KPI slides here and give you an example of how we do that and what the calculations are. So automatically capturing events, automatically calculating KPIs, generating, standardized real-time reports. But then again, important, we can share that data with other applications. If you have a maintenance-based, a maintenance system like SAP's, CMMS or HANA, or if you have something like IBM's Maximo, we can integrate into those systems as well through either a back-end, shared database or through web services. Those are different things that we do as well. And here would be something typical that you would see within Duet. If we're monitoring an asset, we would actually be looking at a Pi tag directly. Now that connection is made through an AF SDK, and if it's a digital state, we'll be looking at its current status. The instant that tag goes into, a stopped, and we have, an exception to one of the trigger rules, we capture the event. When the equipment comes back on, we actually close the event. And this is an event frame. We call this a primary event because it's a hard stop. We also allow you to track bottlenecks and slowdowns because we can take analog values and say, all right, there are targets by product or targets by, line or asset. And when you drop below a target production rate, you're still running and you're still producing. We capture what we call a secondary event, and the same thing. We put some context around it, and we can now do what we call a weighted time allocation, and we can tell you what your loss was. So we can, do it in either units of production, dollars, but we can tell you where your opportunities are by, through slowdowns as well as stoppages. So equipment stoppages, everybody I think on the call here probably understands, unplanned maintenance versus scheduled maintenance. I go back?
Yeah, just the last 10 seconds.
Okay, sorry, Ricardo just indicated that my audio dropped out. So do we still have the call here? We're on the hotel wireless, so I'm not sure. Everybody still online?
Yeah, we're still on, just it dropped out for a couple of seconds.
Okay, thanks, Ricardo. So I think the last thing I was talking about here is, why is it important to capture the different types of events? it's not just the start time and end time and duration, but if we know what product is running through the line, or we know what materials you're consuming, we can actually put a production loss. Because we're using AF, you can calculate things like the dollar amount. What's it costing you in real time? So it's important to capture both the stoppages and the slowdown so that we can actually put some quantifiable numbers to that. In addition to, of course, the context that you would put. So identifying things, operational delays, working with schedules. One of the questions we're talking about schedules. When you're talking about scheduled maintenance versus unplanned maintenance, and I'll be honest, I mean, we can integrate that through the PI system, through AF, through link tables, and then put fully integrated, production schedules in. But if you take a step back and realize that when the equipment stopped, you had to classify it anyway. So whether it's classified as planned or unplanned, to save a whole pile of complexity to only gain very little, we can integrate it. But the idea here is that it should be a simple classification, whether that equipment is down due to a planned maintenance or scheduled or unplanned. But the idea here is that we can tie this in if you do have a maintenance planning package that allows connectivity. And, things like operational delays, and whether or not you're just running idle. All of these are valid reasons for tracking stoppages, but the classification is more important than just, capturing it. Capturing it is as simple as the tag either says it's running or it's not. It's the logistics behind how you classify it, which is important. There were some questions about architecture. This is a standard slide that we show when it comes to architecture. If I were to have you focus up here on the top connection, RtDuet is actually a suite of components. We have a calc engine, a KPI engine, we have a toolkit, a web interface, and then a web service. The idea here is that we make one connection through the AF SDK to the PI system. The PI system within AF is where we store things like the asset hierarchy. We use templates. We store our reason tree and our time usage model. We also put, our events that we capture inside event frames, and we use templates. But we also source the real-time data here. It's when we talk about integrating to third-party systems like reporting, alarming, dashboarding, we allow you to do like a SQL type connection or a web API connection to make those connectivities. Excuse me for a sec. Sorry. And then we do allow you to work with other things like Excel add-ins, and whether or not you use the one that we provide, which has, dedicated functionality. If you're using the Excel add-in for AF, you can build reports and pivot tables and use business intelligence tools like Power BI and things like that to visualize the data. So you have a lot of options when it comes to the connectivity. Now, again, this is a standard PowerPoint, and it did present itself well to some of the questions. There was a questions about roadmap. And
sorry, Kate. This is Julio from Granada. Could you go back to the last?
Sure.
Yes. Yes, I have a question regarding the asset hierarchy, because I was wondering if the RtDuet AF architecture is going to be isolated or is going to be together with AF plant site architecture, or hierarchy.
Okay, great question. We were so early with RtDuet on AF. We were the early adopters, so we do have a template-driven system where we deploy and you build the asset hierarchy within our tool. So it is currently separate. You have to basically build the asset structure and the plant structure that you're looking for and put the triggers. We're moving towards what we call a unified single AF structure where we can go in and we'll call it marry on or adapt to an existing AF structure so that you can convert a particular element into an RtDuet element. But right now, we have our own asset hierarchy that you need to maintain.
Other thing that is coming into my mind is during a workshop here in Granada, we decided to build a global template, and also we define a extension methodology to expand this global template around the plant. Think about that. For example, we defined a dryer asset for Abbott. Maybe we have a difference between Granada and Cootkill. We have to add more attributes, for example, for Granada. What is the methodology for that? I was curious.
We allow extensions to our templates. So if you wanted to add, let's say, a product ID tag, a cost of production, maybe a crew, and you want to do additional reporting, we allow you to extend the templates that we provide out of the box. And those extensions can be ported from site to site or deployment using standard OSIsoft tools. So let's say you develop a template around a dryer for an RtDuet on one site and you add a whole bunch of additional attributes. Maybe you're pulling information from outside database connections and you're pulling that in. We allow you to export that and import it into, the next system, and then you can modify it again. So it is very portable because of the way AF works. But when we deliver it, we allow you to make an extension to the template. It's not advised to change the template because we're looking for certain attributes, but you can add to it all you want.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Now,
and what is the, maybe you'll show it later on when you're doing a demonstration, but is there a specific S88 type architecture that we have to conform to that you can read data from, or is it that it will just read any structure?
We actually enforce, I don't know if it's the S88, but we do have an ISO or an ISA standard that we do enforce, but we provide you with the 4 levels. So if I were to, let me just jump in here. So what we'll talk about is we use the ISA 95 domain hierarchy. And so the methodology that we adopted is the idea of a 4-tier system where you can do enterprise site area and then you get into the production units. So we look at either work cells or work units. And you'll see here that we can do, let's say, Abbott as the enterprise, and then you could have either a division, a site, an area, and then the unit itself, so that you could essentially store it locally or on a central server. But what really it plays to nicely is that if you do have a distributed Pi deployment where each site has their own Pi system, one of the reasons we provided that report sync is we can then push all that information to a central database, and it allows you now to do either enterprise-wide reporting. Maybe you want to do asset type reporting, but the idea is we enforce a structure that follows ISA 95 for now. That's what we have. When we go to this unified architecture, we're going to allow you to use either this or go with like a freestyle where you can add assets into an existing tree. The problem is the reporting becomes more complex depending on the level that the assets fall under. This makes reporting very easy.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's perfect, and I think that's kind of the structure that we're going with anyway.
Okay, excellent. So we talked about roadmap, or one of your questions was about road mapping, and I'll be honest, I carried a lot of the development and the heartaches as, it's not easy keeping up with someone else's product, but as our team grows, we've actually been able to adapt much more rapidly. We're early adopters, so we actually will be testing like the AF29 or AF3 before customers even know about it. The idea is we need to be ready so that if we have a, a bleeding edge type customer who will install a beta version, that we can, make a referral to whether or not that's a good idea. But the idea here is that we've actually progressed with OSI Soft Pi the whole way. So back in 2011, the reason we formed the company was we saw the potential with AF, because we were an early adopter with AF back in 2009, 2010. We did a beta, a proof of concept for OSI Soft, and we actually demonstrated it at the OSI Soft booth at their user conference, and we had a customer buy it. They bought the demo, they bought the proof of concept because they were trying to, justify AF and using these tools. So far, all along the way, we've kept up, and this is showing you the history. When we look forward, again, we talk about, when the releases are coming. So we're looking at capturing major releases to keep up with the versions of AF, obviously. And right now we're AF 2.8, but we have plans to, improve our development. It's not like we're going at this, with blind vision. We actually are setting goals for ourselves so that, eventually we're going to be away from SDKs and we're going to be using things like the Pi Web API, so that we remove, that client connectivity requirement. Right now, if you were to run just an operator station, you only need a web browser. But if you're going to run the toolkit, you require an SDK installed locally. So there are different things. And moving forward, we want to make sure that we detach. We talked about asset structures. We're going to be putting, both products into a single app. And at that point, we make it so that it's a licensing thing. New dashboards, mobile access, as I mentioned earlier, and CoreSite integration, that extensibility so that we become part of CoreSite. And, we're not relying on CoreSite for, having you build your own dashboards. If you want to add something specific for RtDuet, working with Chris Nelson and his team within OSI, we're building add-ons so that if you have an RtDuet server installed, you're going to see that in your CoreSite deployment. So our roadmap right now, we try to make a 5-year commitment to our customers. Again, customers like Cargill, they have roadmaps and we try to align. So without showing you specific feature requests, we show you sort of the high level. So if there is something that, Abbott wanted integrated, we would put it into our actual development cycle, and then, show it on a roadmap so that we can commit to a delivery. But the idea here is that we progress with OSI Soft and we use their new technology so that we don't become outdated within the Pi world. Now, this is, I'm just going to do a time check. Ricardo, how are we doing?
So we have 53 minutes already. We have 40 minutes.
Okay, good. That's going to get me through this. So when you do an RtDuet installation, there are, 6 components that you work with. There are what we call 3 main components, which are the top 3, Toolkit, Calc Engine, and ARI. With those 3, you can run a good downtime system. You can track, capture events, interact with the data. If you want to add your time usage model to the system and then start reporting on KPIs, you install the KPI engine and then you get all of that functionality out of the box. And then again, if you want to have a centralized reporting or even on-site reporting using third-party dashboards like Tableau, like reporting services, things like that, you can add our report sync. And then, of course, if you want to do sort of web methods and integration using a RESTful API that's specific to Duet, the web service is available, which can be added, and then that provides you with integration capabilities. So the toolkit is really, again, I'm back to this slide that I showed you earlier. It's there to enforce the rules so that you get rapid deployment. It confines you to things so that you're guaranteed based on what you put into the system, that the moment you turn it on, if you follow the toolkit instructions and the wizards that we provide, the system will be easily configured and it's reliable. Now, again, we keep the logic very simple. We make it so that it's all SDK driven, all the dialogues that you have. There is very little training required because if you're familiar with Pi tools, all of the pop-ups and all the dialogues you're going to see are actual SDK pop-ups. So when you go to do a tag search, you're actually using the SDK tag search, things like that. The toolkit is designed so that you can do things like build your asset structure, add your triggers, build your reason trees, your time usage models, configure tag security. It even allows you to go in and reprocess events. So I can build an asset today. Maybe you've had your Pi system for 3 years. I can, with the toolkit, say, back calculate the last 3 years worth of events on this based on the logic I just gave you. If you make a mistake, you can go back in, change the trigger scenario, recalculate the events until you know you get it right. So this is also a good validation tool to have. So out of the box, the way it currently exists, we provide you with multi-language support. Knowing that Abbott is a global company, I grew up in Newfoundland, so we have versions of English, we'll call it. We do French and Spanish. And the reason I have those sort of separated is we provide support in those three languages just by default. We do provide Russian, Italian, Dutch, German, and Portuguese. Again, because we're part of the Cargill family as well, and we're doing global deployments, I think someone said they're from the Netherlands. Our very first install within Cargill was actually in Rotterdam. And, we had to go to Rotterdam to do the first one. So Dutch was very important because we did Rotterdam. We're all throughout the Netherlands and Cargill. So we have, a good bulk of the languages. And these are language files. So if there's one that needs to be added, we can add it as a file and it becomes a reference. The calc engine, unfortunately, not a whole lot exciting to see here. It is what does all of the analytics or the analysis on the rules you put in, and its output is an event frame. And that event frame has a set of attributes based on the template, start time, end time. The difference between using the OSI soft pi EF generator or the analytics versus ours is we do all of that peripheral logic. We add all of the metadata, we add all of the events like operator name, what the trigger was, what the set point was, so that when it comes time to use the RtDuet front end, you don't have to maintain the analysis on within AF. So we take care of everything based on the 14 years experience we've had doing this, and we know what to capture, where to put it. We even allow you to do referenced elements and triggers like that. So I'll show you that in the demo. We call it the ARI, or Application Reporting Interface. I think that's a little carryover from the engineering side, but the RtDuet user interface for the operators is a web-based interface. The reason it's web-based is so you can access it on mobile devices, tablets, computers, regardless of the age. The only real flag I'll throw up here is that if you're still running IE Explorer 6 or something like that in a few of your plants, you lose a fair amount of reliability and functionality because we tend to lean towards newer browsers. We support things like Chrome, Firefox, Opera, all the different browsers that you get on devices. It's the Internet Explorer and some of the older versions of that are really where the only trouble exists. Again, in addition to capturing data, if you have particular assets where events are not capturable by a Pi system, what you can do is you can manually insert events and data as well through this interface. So we allow you to do manual data entry. And again, we allow you to split events as well. So I just got my 30-minute warning from Ricardo. So the user interface, I'll fly through this because these are screenshots. I'd rather show you a live system. Event monitoring, event editing. So you double click an event, you can edit single events or multiples. The ability to do Pareto analysis based on a time frame and an asset in the structure. You can do the analysis based on any level. So the further up the tree I go, the more breakdown I get in terms of reason codes and categories. We have a KPI dashboard as well as a KPI report that allows you to look at KPIs either in real time in a more of a dashboard fashion, or you can look at your performance over time as well. So you can see where you've had, a particularly low dip in performance, for instance. And then of course we provide you with kind of an overview dashboard. Again, these are tools that are more operator driven. If you're looking more for corporate or executive dashboards, you can provide this exact same information through CoreSite or something along those lines. But this, this is a real-time live dashboard that can be left open. The KPI engine, really, we're all about capturing the events and formulating them. The logic we do within our KPI engine is very simple. We take a standard time usage model and we look at how you want to define what your downtime categories are, and you classify them so that they fit within our KPI engine standards. And then what they do is they calculate in the background in real time. I'm sorry, I have the power KPIs left in here, but because we're in the power gen side, that's a perfect example of what was asked earlier about, I think Aaron asked it, if there is a specific feature that you require, how do we get it in? When we did our first power generation, they had a whole bunch of KPIs that were IEEE and NERC specific. For us, they could have done it through an extension in AF, but they wanted us to support it. So they pushed it back to us and we put them in as standard offerings. So we can do that and we'll document it and support it for you. So again, some screenshots, and just being conscious of time, would you like an introduction to how we calculate OEE, or is that something that can be done through an email?
We could probably look at that again. We'd be fairly familiar with OEE calculations, so it's more, I think I'd prefer to see the application itself.
Okay, I'll jump right in then. So I'm going to just kind of cruise through a few slides because I do want to talk to you about the report sync. The idea of the report sync, again, is that we push everything I'm showing you into a database so that you can build your own reports. And I've got some screenshots from other customers that highlight, the variability you can have, because we originally used to deliver a set of reports that were integrated. Every single customer was looking for a tweak, a color change, a font difference. Can you do this? And it became a bit of a bear to manage from a reporting side. So we tried to make it easy by giving the same information so that it can be integrated into a corporate standard for reporting that may exist already. And that's the whole driving force behind this report sync. And what I'm going to do is at this point, I'm actually going to jump out of the PowerPoint and I'm going to dive into my connection. Now, again, we're supported on up to, I think this is a server 2016, I think it is. So regardless of the version of your server, we'll go back to, I think it's 2008, and that's only because the OSI Soft Pi AF is now only supported on 2.8. We have a version that we can dispatch on a Windows Server 2003. But what I'm showing you here today is, I think, a 2012 server. So this is a live system, and what I have here is, this is my toolkit, and I have the ability to build again. And what I'll do is I'll do a quick demo. I'll build one live for you, but I'll show you a system that we currently have where we add what we called our primary triggers. Those would be the hard stops. And then we add secondary triggers, which would be our slowdowns or, maybe potential bottlenecks. This is extremely scalable. There is no limit to how many triggers you put on a system. We do recommend that when you're building your system, that you try to capture the key ones. If you overdo it, it ends up being, again, a bit of a management thing. But the idea here is that once you add all of these triggers, the triggers are also ranked, because you can set up things like split by trigger rank. What if a low priority trigger kicks in, like maybe a high limit switch or a low limit switch, and then a high limit switch kicks in? We want the system, based on the rules you tell it, to be able to split events by trigger rank and capture those higher priorities. The other thing worth mentioning is that if a primary trigger were to kick in, it overrides a secondary automatically. So we have this concept that a slowdown would obviously be overwritten if a primary trigger kicks in. So you will see that the event will start as a secondary and then it will transition into a primary. We have the ability to do advanced triggers. And some of the advanced things that we can do is, the question was prompted about splitting events. If you want to split an event, let's say an event happens at 7:45 and you have a shift change at 8 o'clock where you close out everything and you want even the events to be closed at shift change, we can make that easy for your team by setting up automatic split times that can accommodate shifts so that an event will be closed off automatically, and then it will automatically open a new event in the next shift. We have primary event duration so that we can filter out, again, small events. We have the ability to add things like crews, product numbers, things that you may want. This is completely open, so we call these free auxiliary labels. So when an operations team is presented with an event edit screen, they have the ability to also pick auxiliary labels that may be specific to their process, the plant, or their division. And then we also have the ability to relate assets. We talk about upstream, downstream events. If a particular process line is cascaded or run in series or parallel, we have the ability here that if you set a particular reason code for one machine, you have the ability to also apply that to all related assets that may have gone down at the same time. So we have the ability to relate assets. Now, I mentioned earlier about dialogues. If I were to hit the search dialog here, you can see I'm presented with an SDK search dialog where I have the ability to do my tag search, so there's no typing required. When I'm building my reason tree, again, this is an AF infrastructure, so everything that I'm showing you here, this toolkit is really a faceplate to AF. And when I talk about reason trees, what I'm actually showing you is, the machine reasons here. If I were to add something in my toolkit, and you see here, extra reasons, if I were to come in here and just say, let's add one, right here, and I'm going to call this just Abbott demo, and I hit save. Now, you'll notice I actually have a name and a display text. I can actually match this up with a maintenance code or an asset number, and I have the ability to use what's called common naming, and then maybe I've got a maintenance program. So I could call this AE123 as a code that's important for the maintenance team to know. So I just hit save there. Now when I come back over here and I hit refresh on this, you're going to see, let me just hit, why is it not refreshing?
Because it's a live demo.
I know. But if I go back in and I do machine reasons, not sure where I put it. Well, it went somewhere. I am connected to RtTech. It's under extra reasons. There. So, yeah, good if I get the right one. So you can see here that this is my Abbott demo. All of the things that are required. So there's the display text. I can auto map it to a time classification, put descriptions. And again, the question earlier about how easy is it to extend the functionality of Duet, it's as easy as modifying the template that this is related to. So if you come in here, you'll see that this is actually the RtDuet reason tree leaf template, and it's just a matter of extending the template functionality. And you'll see this actually come up live when I go to show you my next part of the demo. Root categories, this is how we implement our time usage model. You put your plain text and then you tell us how you want it categorized. So if I have a machine breakdown, that's an unplanned event that affects availability. It could be part of a validation type, and if it is really focused on maintenance KPIs, we can classify it as an unscheduled loss failure. All of that is important. in terms of the KPI engine. Again, we talk about tag security. We can build in some default securities. This is where I mentioned earlier about being able to test, recalculate, and look at events. If I were to come in here and build a new division and call it, and this is me building a live demo here now, again, I'll just call it, I don't know, I'm sitting in Halifax, so it'll be Halifax. We're sitting in, what's the name of this room? Anyway, it's Oxford. We're sitting in the Oxford room, and I'm going to create a demo asset, Machine Center 01, 2 T's. So here's what happens. It says, all right, so I'm building a new asset. It's going to create a status tag which captures that progress of whether the machine is running, slow, or stopped. I say yes. Easy as that. So now I've just created an asset. I'm going to add a simple trigger that's going to be an active primary trigger. I do a search, and I'm going to use, let's say, level, and I'm going to say, give me whenever the level is less than 20, create an event. Boom, I have an active trigger. I'm going to come into my events, and I'm going to say, all right, let's see over the last, I'll take 24 hours, how many events there are. It's actually going to go out, hit the Pi system. It created, a lot of events. And then it's auto-splitting anything if I've got those set up. Remember, I set it up by shift. There are all of my downtime events. That's how easy it is to build a machine, switch it on. Actually, this one's not switched on. I don't have it assigned to a calc server, but I'm going to tell it to calculate here. And what I can do now is, this is now live. I'm going to go to my web interface, which I've been showing you all along. I'm going to hit refresh, and you're going to see that under this category, there's my Abbott demo, Halifax, Oxford. And as I click on it, you're going to see these fill in. There's all my events. I'm actually going to double click an event here. I'm presented with, under my extra reasons, it's actually showing the display, the codes and not the display text, but I can pick that. I'll pick machine breakdown and say that this is a demo comment. I hit save, and there we go. And you can see it changed color because that is now a saved event. I can do multiple events if I want at the same time, and I can go in and I can say multi-edit, and this will be a machine reason as an operating delay, and I hit save, and you can see that, so this is really how I interact with the data. I have the ability to change my time format. It uses Pi time notation, or I can do, calendar times where I can pick my dates. I have the ability to show some filters where I can put in event types, show me only saved events. And what it'll do is it will filter out, anything that's unsaved. For most operators, when they do events, once they're saved, they'd like to see them drop off the list. So we can say, only show me saved events, and they know that this is what they're responsible for. So we have all kinds of ability to calculate that. Because I don't have the KPI set up for that one, I'm actually going to go into one of my other divisions, and I'm going to drill down. I'm going to pick a particular area, and I'm going to turn off my filter. And you can see here I got multiple trends and all that. But I'm actually going to go into my KPI screen. What this is going to do is, now this is showing me the KPIs for that area. What if I want to look at the KPI for a particular machine? You can see that as I go from machine to machine, depending on how I've got my triggers set up, it reports different KPIs. I can look at the history if I want. But more importantly, if I'm trying to do, again, my root cause analysis or things like that, I'm going to go into my reports. And once I go into my reports, this is a 24-hour period. It's going to pull up all of the machine reasons, and I have the ability to drill down. And now I can see like overheating is obviously a large problem for me. I've got this one, but I have the ability now to sort of see, where to focus my attention. And depending on, how deep my levels go, I can continue to drill down and find out why overheating is a problem, or, what's causing these. So I have the root cause analysis with drill down capabilities. I also have the ability to call up my um, overview screen. This is going to give me a full summary of my KPIs, my downtime events, my top 10 reasons. And as it renders the screen here, it's going to just fill these all in. I've actually got quite a large time frame picked, probably a little too big. But you see here that depending on, what it is I want to see, I have the ability to do full overview. So
this gives us kind of the OEE type interface of where you can see the events, you can see the utilizations and downtimes, etc. Something that we do would be the likes of, say, day by the hour reports, or we use dashboards on screens, and that would be full screen dashboards with nice visualizations. That's something that the tool can do, or?
Well, the tool, you can hit, I think it's F11. Let me see. Yeah, if you go F11, you can, pretty much get it into a full screen mode. However, with this particular one, if you want to really do more of a dashboard per se, I would focus on using some of the other tools that are designed for more dynamic dashboarding. And the reason I say that is if I come over here and I highlight, let's find one that actually has it mapped. I have the ability to map my OEE or any of my KPIs to a pie tag, and then that pie tag can be mapped on a core site display, for instance, or a process book display. Out of the box, with this current version, what you have is you have the ability to, let's say, use the tool as it is here with some functionality, and you can go, we'll say, pretty much full screen, and I can do things like hide my filters. I don't think I can hide my time frame, but the idea here is that you can get it almost full screen, and this is a live display, and you can set it for an area, or you can set it for a particular asset. This will update. So this has a refresh time set on it that can be configured. So you can come in under your options here, set, what time zone you're in, what options you want, refresh time, small event filters, things like that. If I have, how much time left? 15? Okay. I'll give you a peek into what's coming. And when I say a peek, what I want to show you is that this current generation of the RtTech Duet will be, we talked about extensibility. In our next release, because we're working with OSIsoft and CoreSite, what you're going to see late fall, maybe even early, Q2 for us, is you're going to see the ability to build your dashboards, because we're adding functionality to our system and to their system. And this dashboarding is not available now on the Pi side, but it will be available because we're currently testing it. So there are dashboards coming. Out of the box right now, you have to either use CoreSite or use what I showed you here today. So
yeah, it's something that we're struggling with. So it's very good, all the stuff that you're showing. Something that we're struggling with, though, is we have the data, but then it's slicing up the data. So if you have a rate tag which is coming in, it's to say, okay, well, I want to see that rate of what the sum of the rate was for hour by hour, split the data up into pieces. I haven't seen any tool that can really do it so far, yeah.
Well, out of the box, no, but you do have the BI tools. And again, we give you that back-end database. So if you really wanted to get into some business intelligence and you want to use something like Power Pivot, and you want to build a pivot table that allows you to slice it up by crew, by shift, by time, by day, you're getting into using things like Excel tools, or even they now have cloud-based BI. which allows you to do it at the server level. But building a pivot table for slicing the data up is really the way to go. And what we've done is we've given you, as I showed you earlier, the ability to do that by providing you with the data sliced up into these tables that allow you to look at the event frames, the KPIs, the assets. You can visualize it as many ways as you need. But for us to give you something out of the box, it's tough.
Okay. No, you understand. That's grand. Thanks.
So I've got a 15-minute mark. Do we want to leave the last 15 minutes for specific show and tell? You can ask questions and I can show, or let's see if we've addressed all of these.
Maybe Julio, about your visualization, there's some parts that you want to see.
Well, I think the main question that I had of this tool was the new analytic approach that this tool has with the new version of Pi, and also the visualization could be. I'm very interested because I'm creating a visualization user requirement. I would like to see that if this tool is going to cover all the things that we are looking for. Maybe different graph gallery or different customization that we can do in this visualization tool, because at the end we would like to follow some rules, some branch rules, and this is something very critical for the Abbott global implementation. You know?
Okay, no, that's a great. What I can do is I can answer part of that question by showing you how we can customize the visualization, so you can actually tell the system what you want to see on the pages. So you're not stuck with one visual. You can actually tell it what you want to see, and then I know the guys are working on a version that can be deployed through a portal. So if you want to have a particular fixed view of a particular asset run in an external portal, like an SAP portal, we can run in that portal a fixed set of parameters that are being passed to it, so that we can remove the navigation, we can remove the time frame, and you can load any one of these displays that are in this frame by just passing it the parameter. Now, what you can do out of the box is, like right now I've got, for instance, my KPI dashboard, my gauge. I've got 4 components shown here. Through our toolkit, we allow you to configure just about anything you want. Time format, scale sizing, refresh rates. And I can come down here and I'm going to go into what we call the KPI display. So right here, KPI display. And I want to take out, let's say, my OEE or my reliability, and I want to just show the top 2 that are important to me. So I change it here. I hit close. I go back to my web display. I hit refresh. When I come back into that KPI gauge screen, what you can expect to see now is you can expect to see, again, just the 2 KPIs. And I can even control which columns are being displayed. I can control just everything. So it's reading its new configuration. So now I have just the 2. So I have full control over almost all aspects of the visual tools. And that's how we set it here. You can pick colors, time frames, time formats, whatever you need. And again, it's because out of the box, not everybody needs to see the same information. But when it comes to Avi, for instance, if you have a standard that you want from site to site that you want to control, this is all stored in an AF table. So if I go in under library and I go under tables, there's my server options. These are all my preferences. So I don't even need to go in and set them up on site to site. I can export this table and import it on the new site, and now I can have a standard deployment
Mhm.
scheme.
I think that's a good benefit, as we were talking in the previous meeting, is that full capability in having the opportunity to have our team to work on the specifics of your requirements is that if we have a pilot coming in, we will be able to fully see and understand the capabilities, right? And I guess that's the purpose for this meeting. I believe that we have covered definitely more than we did the other day. But the idea is to, as we go deep and deep, and I can see it in Keith that he's entirely excited and showing all of the capabilities, right, and the benefits of the tool. So I'm just trying to right now set up the next steps, right? Where could we drive either another demonstration, or if we what will prevent us to somehow generate a plan for the an implementation of a pilot.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think if you're asking us like a proof of concept, we first have to, I think, regroup and figure out what area we want to go into. We have
Correct.
some visualizations requirements, and yeah, I think we have to look at what's the best for us. But I think we have to first have to regroup. I find it very impressive, I must say. Yeah.
Perfect. So I guess taking advantage of that, we have capabilities of developing or working on a demo. If you have an idea or an idea in your head, or if you have already a presentation or a dashboard that shows the functions that you want to see, what we can do is somehow elaborate some print screens, elaborate some slides, so somehow match what we can do, or just start a conversation, right, based on those requirements. So if you're ready, as you were mentioning, if you have an idea what you want to show, what we can do is identify what are the gaps, right, and how we can even put that into a timeline and measure those gaps from a real live pilot.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, maybe Aaron and Julio, I think if you look at the dashboard you're trying to build, I mean, we could even take that as a pilot, but and then basically see how this would fit in here. I think it's a prime example.
Yeah, definitely, and also, as you know, we have a local application here that where we are pushing all the information for the OE or different information that is going to the flow level. I think would be a good example of the thing that the operator are looking for.
Perfect. If you can help us somehow for us to have an idea of the services that you want to be covered, right, with this dashboards, we can even set up just some time just with that, either yourself or whoever becomes the point of contact for that particular part. But the idea is to definitely understand what the capability of RtDuet brings, plus how open is that door to build information on all the Pi core site and all the other features that we can, right? So I think I just want to do a little bit of a roundtable. We only have 1 more minute, but just wanted to know if there is something right now for now that you feel that we're missing, or that we can somehow cover before you guys regroup.
This is Aaron here. So thanks for the presentation. It's a very good presentation, and I think the application itself is very powerful. I think it has some great features, and its benefits that we'd all get from it is that it enforces a standard. So I think it's very powerful that way. The only thing for me that I think is kind of missing for me is the visualization part. I vaguely remembered from the last demonstration we had a while back that there was a lot more visuals and there was an option that Pablo was talking about before about it, including some other visuals like visuals that we currently have in a different application, but I don't know if they were removed or maybe there's a different roadmap for yourselves, but that's the only part that's missing for me. I think it's very powerful otherwise, yeah.
What I've got called up on the screen, sorry, what I've got called up on the screen here right now is an example of how another customer uses RtDuet with their own dashboard of visuals. This is actually a core site. We take, again, all the information, we push the OEE, all the KPIs that we do, and then some of the statuses. They're currently using this at their site, in core site, because this is what they want it displayed. Again, we tried to leverage the OSI Soft Pi side of it more for visuals. And one of our other customers, they don't even use CoreSite. They use a product called Tableau. And I don't know if you've ever seen Tableau. And they're using RtDuet combined with Tableau. And they build their dashboards using Pi data and RtDuet data.
Tableau, how is that? Is it T-A-B-L-O?
T-A-B-L-E-A-U,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
L-U, okay.
It's competitor to ClickView.
Okay, yeah.
So, okay. I guess at this point, Ricardo will still be your primary point of contact. So we can share the PowerPoint with you if you like. If there's any information or any visuals, let us know. We can, our job is to help you out in terms of pushing this, to whatever level we need to. But please just contact Ricardo and ask him for any of the materials.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Very impressed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Bye.